The father who actually brought her up, who paid for her private education while her mother was in jail. Those 9 words, spoken without hesitation on a live British news broadcast, created a media earthquake that would reverberate through royal circles for months to come. For decades, whispers circulated in the shadows about Doria Ragland's inexplicable vanishing act from her daughter Meghan Markle's teenage years. Questions lingered, rumors multiplied, yet one subject remained buried beneath layers of carefully managed silence: the truth about where Doria Ragland disappeared to when her daughter needed her guidance most. What were those close to the family desperately trying to hide? Join us as we uncover the explosive on-air revelation that threatens to dismantle everything we thought we knew about the Duchess of Sussex's carefully constructed origin story. It all began quietly on what seemed like an ordinary panel discussion at GB News headquarters in London. Carol Malone, a seasoned contributor known for her unflinching commentary, sat beneath the studio lights alongside her fellow panelists, cameras rolling as they dissected yet another chapter in the never-ending Sussex saga. Nobody anticipated what was about to unfold. As the conversation turned to Meghan's relationship with her hospitalized father, Thomas Markle, abandoned by both his daughter and ex-wife, Malone made a statement so explosive that the entire discussion ground to an immediate halt. The father who actually brought her up, who paid for her private education while her mother was in jail, she declared with stunning directness, her voice steady and certain. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "When was her mom in jail?" came the stunned interruption from across the table. "Years ago," Malone responded calmly, as if she'd just mentioned the weather rather than dropped a potential bombshell about British royalty's newest member. The moment, broadcast live and impossible to walk back, ignited social media within minutes. Video clips spread like wildfire across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, racked up millions of views before the sun set that evening. This wasn't the first time such allegations had surfaced from the murky depths of tabloid speculation. Tom Bower, the respected investigative journalist and royal biographer, had carefully hinted at similar circumstances in his meticulously researched book Revenge, which peeled back the glossy veneer of Meghan's pre-royal existence. Lady Colin Campbell, the controversial aristocrat and royal author, had made veiled suggestions during interviews. Samantha Markle, Meghan's estranged half-sister, had spoken in frustratingly vague terms about family secrets that would shock the world if revealed. But never before had someone stated it with such plain-spoken clarity on mainstream television, with such apparent confidence in the facts. The implications were staggering. Prison time, drug proximity, a pattern of maternal absence that coincided precisely with Meghan's most vulnerable developmental period. To truly grasp the magnitude of these allegations, we must journey back to the sun-drenched streets of Los Angeles in the early 1980s, where a biracial baby girl named Rachel Meghan Markle entered a world already complicated by conflicting cultures and expectations. Born on August 4, 1981, at West Park Hospital in Canoga Park, California, Meghan arrived into what appeared from the outside to be a loving, stable family. Her father, Thomas Wayne Markle Sr., had built an impressive career as an Emmy Award-winning lighting director, his technical brilliance illuminating some of television's most beloved sitcoms, including Married with Children and General Hospital. Her mother, Doria Ragland, embodied the free-spirited California aesthetic with her dreadlocks, her yoga practice, and her work in social services. Early photographs capture what seems like an idyllic childhood, a curly-haired toddler beaming between doting parents at backyard barbecues, birthday celebrations, and family gatherings in the valley. But somewhere in the mid to late 1990s, something fundamental shifted in this seemingly happy family portrait. Around the time Meghan transitioned from childhood into her crucial teenage years, approximately 1995 or 1996, Doria Ragland effectively disappeared from all public documentation of her daughter's life. No smiling mother-daughter photographs at school events, no presence at graduations or award ceremonies, no trace whatsoever in any records for what multiple independent sources claim stretched nearly a full decade. Thomas Markle suddenly became a single father in all but legal status, shouldering the complete financial and emotional burden of raising a teenage daughter alone. He paid the substantial tuition at Immaculate Heart High School, an exclusive all-girls Catholic institution in Los Feliz, where annual costs easily reached into the tens of thousands of dollars. He juggled his demanding production schedule to drive Meghan to auditions, encouraged her early activism when she successfully campaigned to change a sexist dish soap commercial, and provided the unwavering stability that would eventually propel her to international stardom on the legal drama Suits. The obvious question hung unanswered in the air. Where exactly was Doria Ragland during these formative years of her daughter's life? The official narrative, carefully crafted and zealously protected by Meghan's public relations team, offered only vague suggestions that Doria had pursued her own independent path, perhaps living elsewhere, perhaps focusing on personal growth and career development. The explanation satisfied no one who looked closely at the timeline. Royal commentator Natasha, who built a substantial following analyzing the Sussexes on her YouTube channel, according to Taz, didn't mince words during her appearance discussing the controversy. "I've got to be careful here, Dan," she began, her caution evident as she navigated the legal minefield of unproven allegations. "But I think it's obvious that Doria was away for a large amount of time, which would be consistent, say, with a prison sentence. I've also heard stories over the years that she joined a hippie commune, which is also believable when you think of Doria. She looks like someone that would be a hippie." The hippie commune theory had gained some traction over the years among those seeking a benign explanation for Doria's prolonged absence, a narrative that avoided the darker implications of criminal activity and incarceration. But Natasha pushed beyond comfortable speculation into territory that made even her interviewer visibly uncomfortable. "She just decided she didn't want to be a mom anymore," Natasha continued, her tone mixing disbelief with analytical detachment. "You know, you do read stories like this. As I said, it's clearly obvious that she was away for a length of time. She does seem to have been around her daughter when she was younger, and then she got back involved when Meghan was an older teenager. You saw her at her graduation." The graduation Natasha referenced was Meghan's college commencement from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, in June of 2003. Photographs from that day show Doria present, smiling proudly as her daughter received her degree in theater and international studies. By that point, Meghan had reached 22 years of age, a fully formed adult who had navigated high school, college applications, young adulthood, and the beginning of her professional career largely without her mother's daily presence or guidance. The gap Natasha described wasn't speculation or exaggeration. It was documented fact visible in the photographic record of Meghan's life. The mystery wasn't whether Doria had been absent, but why, and what had kept her away for so long. But was Doria truly just a free-spirited wanderer who temporarily opted out of motherhood, or does the evidence point towards something far more serious and potentially criminal? Pieces of the puzzle scattered across various interviews and investigations suggest a pattern that extends beyond simple parental neglect. Lady Colin Campbell, despite her controversial reputation, moves in aristocratic circles with access to information unavailable to ordinary journalists. She had spoken at length during previous interviews about Doria's involvement in activities related to the drug trade during that mysterious period. Not necessarily as a user or addict, Campbell carefully clarified, but in proximity to drug-related activities in ways that raised serious legal questions. Carol Malone's bold on-air claim about imprisonment suddenly carried far more weight when viewed through this lens of accumulated evidence and testimony. If Doria Ragland had indeed served time in prison, it would explain not merely her physical absence, but the desperate, concerted efforts to keep that chapter of family history permanently sealed. The relationship between Meghan and Thomas during those crucial fatherless mother years reveals a story of profound devotion, tremendous sacrifice, and what would eventually become heartbreaking betrayal. Thomas Markle didn't just work in the entertainment industry. He excelled at the demanding craft of lighting design, earning 3 Daytime Emmy Awards for his technical artistry. But his profession required brutal hours, often 16-hour days on set, followed by preparation for the next day's shoot. Yet despite these crushing demands, Thomas somehow found the energy and time to be present for every important moment in his daughter's life. He attended her school plays and cheer performances. He nurtured her social consciousness when she showed early signs of activism. He saved every extra dollar to provide opportunities and experiences far beyond what his middle-class income would normally allow. "Meghan has always been my princess," Thomas told reporters years later during one of his heartbreaking public pleas for reconciliation, his voice cracking under the weight of emotion and loss. "I gave her everything I had." Those who knew Thomas Markle during Meghan's teenage and young adult years paint a consistent portrait of a devoted single father navigating uncharted waters. He shielded his daughter from the seedier elements of Hollywood culture, even as he worked deep within that world himself. He insisted that education remain her top priority over any premature pursuit of acting roles or fame. He made certain she understood the dignity of hard work and the importance of treating others with respect, regardless of their station in life. Colleagues and friends recall seeing Thomas at Meghan's school functions and extracurricular events, always alone, always supportive, always wearing his dedication to his daughter like a badge of honor. He didn't just fill the role of father, he became mother and father both, providing the stability and unconditional love that created the foundation for everything Meghan would eventually achieve. That foundation seemed unshakable, built to last a lifetime, until the moment Meghan Markle met Prince Harry and the entire structure came crashing down. The devastating turning point arrived not during Meghan's childhood but decades later, in the frenzied spring months of 2018. As the entire world prepared for what promised to be the royal wedding of the decade, as millions eagerly anticipated watching American actress Meghan Markle transform into the Duchess of Sussex at Windsor Castle's historic St. George's Chapel on May 19th, Thomas Markle found himself trapped in a tabloid nightmare that would permanently sever his relationship with his beloved daughter. Paparazzi photographs had surfaced, showing Thomas apparently participating in obviously staged photo opportunities, reading a book about British history in an internet cafe, examining photographs of Harry and Meghan on a computer screen, being measured for a wedding suit in what was clearly a posed setup. The images, as investigative reporting soon revealed, had been carefully arranged and financially compensated, representing a clumsy attempt by a man living modestly in Rosarito, Mexico, to improve his battered public image while earning desperately needed money before his daughter's royal wedding. The media backlash arrived with the force of a Category 5 hurricane. Thomas became instant tabloid cannon fodder, portrayed universally as a grasping opportunist, cynically trying to monetize his daughter's fairy tale romance and royal connection. But those familiar with the behind-the-scenes reality tell a far more sympathetic and nuanced story. Thomas Markle had endured months of relentless paparazzi harassment, photographed purchasing toilet paper at the grocery store, taking out his garbage in ratty clothes, looking disheveled and utterly unprepared for the global media spotlight about to consume his quiet retirement. A photographer approached him with what must have seemed like a reasonable solution at the time. Participate in some dignified photos showing him preparing for the wedding, reading about Britain, looking grandfatherly and appropriate. He would earn 5 figures that could help with travel expenses and wedding costs, while simultaneously countering the unflattering candid shots that made him look like a schlub. Thomas, completely naive to the Byzantine rules of royal protocol and modern media manipulation, agreed to the arrangement. When the fabricated nature of the photographs was explosively revealed just days before the wedding ceremony, Meghan reportedly felt deeply betrayed by her father's deception and poor judgment. But then came the medical crisis that would transform embarrassment into permanent estrangement. Thomas Markle suffered a serious heart attack. Whether triggered by the overwhelming stress, the media-feeding frenzy, underlying cardiovascular disease, or some combination of factors remained medically unclear, but the timing could not have been more catastrophic. Thomas informed Meghan from his hospital bed that he physically could not attend the wedding, could not walk his daughter down the aisle as planned, could not fulfill the role that fathers dream about from the moment their daughters are born. Meghan was left to navigate the most scrutinized day of her life without the man who had raised her, supported her, and sacrificed everything to ensure her success. In the chaotic days between Thomas's hospitalization and the wedding ceremony, as the world watched Windsor Castle prepare for a modern fairy tale, a parallel family drama played out in hospital rooms and angry phone calls. Thomas Markle, recovering from emergency cardiac surgery in a Tijuana medical facility, made the catastrophic decision to give interviews to TMZ and other media outlets. He explained his reasoning behind the staged photographs. He defended his choices and motivations. He expressed his profound love for his daughter and his heartbreak at missing her wedding. Each interview, each public statement, each attempt to justify himself only drove the wedge deeper between father and child. Meghan proceeded with the wedding as scheduled, choosing instead to begin her walk down the aisle completely alone before Prince Charles joined her for the final approach to the altar, creating a powerful visual statement about female independence that was praised as feminist and progressive but also spoke volumes about a devastating family rupture. Since that painful day of May 19, 2018, Thomas Markle has had absolutely zero contact with his daughter. He has never met his grandson, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, born May 6, 2019. He has never held his granddaughter, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, born June 4, 2021. He has watched from painful distance as his daughter and son-in-law departed the royal family in dramatic fashion, relocated to California to live just a few hours' drive from where he resides in Mexico, and constructed an entirely new existence based on revealing their truth to the world. He has suffered additional heart attacks and strokes that have left him physically weakened and psychologically shattered. He has made repeated public pleas for reconciliation, for forgiveness, for any opportunity whatsoever to meet his grandchildren before death makes that reunion impossible. The silence from Montecito has remained absolute, unbroken, and seemingly eternal. Yet, during this exact same period of total estrangement from her father, Doria Ragland became the sole family member to attend Meghan's royal wedding. Photographs captured her sitting alone in St. George's Chapel, elegant and composed in her pale green Oscar de la Renta outfit and tasteful fascinator, representing Meghan's entire American family in that globally televised moment. Doria seamlessly transitioned into the role of devoted grandmother and trusted advisor, becoming a fixture in the Sussex narrative as it evolved. She appeared in carefully orchestrated photo opportunities, FaceTiming with baby Archie, visiting Meghan's Montecito mansion, embodying the archetype of the loving matriarch, completely present in her daughters' and grandchildren's lives. The woman who had vanished for nearly a decade during Meghan's formative years was now everywhere, while the man who had been consistently present during that same period was nowhere to be found. The stark contrast between Meghan's treatment of these two parents defies easy explanation or comfortable rationalization. On one side stands Thomas Markle, the father who raised her solo through her teenage years, paid tens of thousands of dollars for her elite private education, sacrificed career advancement to ensure her success, and remained devotedly present for every milestone and challenge. He has been completely discarded despite his desperate pleas, his failing health, and his anguished desire to know his grandchildren before death separates them forever. On the other side stands Doria Ragland, the mother who inexplicably vanished for nearly 10 years during Meghan's youth, whose absence during those crucial developmental years has never been adequately explained or publicly addressed. She has been fully embraced, celebrated, integrated into every aspect of Meghan's new life without any apparent accountability for that lengthy disappearance. This glaring disparity has not escaped the notice of royal commentators, media analysts, or the global public, fueling endless speculation about what exactly Doria knows, what secrets she guards, what unspoken leverage binds mother and daughter in ways that clearly don't extend to Thomas. Carol Malone's incendiary on-air comments crystallized these unspoken suspicions into direct accusation. It's her compassion for the father who actually brought her up, who paid for her private education while her mother was in jail, who took huge care of her, Malone stated, her voice mixing genuine bewilderment with pointed criticism. And she's not seen him in the latter years. More importantly, she's not just not seen him, she's totally snubbed him. You know, this old gentleman now could be dying. He needs to see his daughter. The response came swiftly from Meghan's media defenders, attempting to shift the conversation away from uncomfortable questions. Jonathan, another panelist, immediately tried to redirect by comparing the situation to Prince Harry's own complicated relationship with King Charles during his cancer treatment. "Is this other people's business, or should we just leave them to it?" he suggested. "It's Meghan's decision whether she goes or not." But the comparison felt hollow and the deflection transparent, particularly when the discussion quickly pivoted to discussing intimate details of King Charles's medical condition, conveniently moving away from the explosive topic of Doria's past. For those who had followed the Sussex saga with careful attention to detail, Carol Malone's claim represented not some wild conspiracy theory, but rather the culmination of years of breadcrumbs, strategic hints, and carefully worded half-truths from various credible sources. Tom Bower's exhaustively researched book Revenge had involved interviews with dozens of people from Meghan's past, painting a detailed portrait of an extraordinarily ambitious woman who strategically cultivated relationships that could advance her goals and just as strategically discarded people who no longer served her purposes. Bower's treatment of the Doria timeline was notably cautious and legally precise, but his chronology made abundantly clear, through dates and documented absences, that Doria's disappearance from Meghan's teenage years was both prolonged and completely unexplained by any official narrative. Samantha Markle had been considerably more direct and inflammatory in her various media interviews and in her tell-all book, The Diary of Princess Pushy's Sister. Samantha claimed to possess documentation regarding Doria's activities during the missing years, hints at criminal records that could be uncovered, suggestions of behavior that would genuinely shock the public if fully revealed and verified, but Samantha's credibility remained deeply compromised in many people's eyes, tainted by her obvious bitterness about being excluded from Meghan's life and her apparent willingness to speak to literally any media outlet willing to pay for her story, no matter how disreputable. Lady Colin Campbell represented an entirely different caliber of information source. Despite her controversial public persona and her tendency toward dramatic pronouncements, Lady C genuinely moves within aristocratic and royal circles, maintains access to information channels unavailable to typical journalists, and has established a track record of making claims that initially seemed outrageous but later proved substantially accurate. Her specific comments about Doria's involvement with drug-related activities, her pointed suggestions about circumstances that would be entirely consistent with criminal prosecution and incarceration, carried considerably more weight precisely because she was willing to speak on the record while so many others would only whisper their suspicions in private conversations. And now, Carol Malone, a mainstream media figure appearing on a legitimate news network with legal departments and editorial standards, had stated plainly and directly what others had only carefully implied. The question shifted from whether these claims held any truth to whether they could ever be definitively proven in court or through public records, whether Doria's past would remain forever obscured behind the impenetrable wall of celebrity public relations machinery and Meghan's iron determination to control every aspect of her public narrative. Throughout all of this swirling controversy and unanswered questions, one fundamental truth remains undeniable and deeply disturbing. Thomas Markle, the man Carol Malone correctly identified as the parent who actually raised Meghan during the years her mother was mysteriously absent, lies in various hospital beds as his health progressively deteriorates, desperately hoping for a phone call or message that becomes less likely with each passing day. He has made his mistakes, absolutely, with the staged photographs ranking as the most significant and damaging. But do those errors in judgment truly justify a complete and permanent severing of all familial relationship, especially from a daughter who speaks eloquently and frequently in public forums about compassion, kindness, mental health awareness, and the fundamental importance of family bonds? Meghan's loyal defenders consistently argue that she possesses every right to establish firm boundaries to protect her emotional well-being and that of her children from family members who have spoken to the press and violated her privacy. They correctly point out that Thomas has indeed given numerous paid interviews to various media outlets, continuing to discuss his famous daughter publicly despite her obvious and repeatedly expressed desire for complete privacy regarding family matters. But critics counter with equal validity that Thomas only began speaking to media after being completely and utterly cut off from all communication after his serious health crisis was met with absolute silence from his daughter after his repeated private attempts at reconciliation through intermediaries were systematically ignored or rebuffed. What realistic choice did he have except to speak publicly when every private channel of communication had been permanently closed and locked? The situation regarding Doria complicates this already complex narrative even further. If Carol Malone's explosive claims prove accurate, if Doria indeed served substantial time in prison during Meghan's youth, then Meghan has consciously chosen to maintain a close, loving relationship with a parent who abandoned her during absolutely critical developmental years, while simultaneously cutting off all contact with the parent who stepped up and filled that void during that exact same period. If the claims are demonstrably false, if Doria's lengthy absence had some entirely different and innocent explanation, then why hasn't that explanation ever been offered publicly or even privately to trusted media allies? Why does this mystery persist year after year? Why do those close to Meghan and Doria dance around the topic with such obvious legal caution and carefully worded non-denials? Royal commentator Natasha offered perhaps the most penetrating analysis of this troubling dynamic during her extended discussion on Outspoken. "There is a big gap in between that I think needs to be explained," she stated firmly, referring directly to Doria's documented absence from Meghan's life. "And when you look at what Meghan did, which is cut her father out of her life, the father who raised her for all of those years when her mom wasn't around, it just doesn't seem to add up. It doesn't make logical sense from any angle." Natasha's assessment struck at the heart of the contradiction. Basic logic, fundamental human decency, elementary gratitude would naturally suggest loyalty and appreciation toward the parent who provided unwavering stability during a turbulent and difficult period. Instead, the exact opposite occurred, suggesting either a level of cold calculation that fundamentally challenges Meghan's carefully cultivated public persona of compassion and empathy, or knowledge of information that hasn't been made public and likely never will be. The implications of this family drama extend far beyond one dysfunctional family's private pain and resentments. Meghan Markle has deliberately positioned herself on the global stage as a passionate champion of social justice, of speaking truth to power regardless of consequences, of amplifying the voices of the marginalized and voiceless. She and Prince Harry have constructed their entire post-royal brand on the foundation of authenticity, of courageously sharing their truth as they so memorably described it during their explosive, globally watched interview with Oprah Winfrey in March of 2021. Yet when it comes to her own complicated family situation, when it comes to the man who raised her and now publicly begs for any contact whatsoever as his health catastrophically fails, Meghan's much-celebrated truth remains conspicuously silent. This glaring contradiction has not gone unnoticed by media critics or the watching public. Even as Thomas Markle's health continues its tragic downward spiral, even as he suffers repeated heart attacks and strokes that leave him increasingly weakened and facing his own mortality, Meghan maintains her inflexible distance and absolute silence. Close friends of Thomas report that he keeps his mobile phone within arm's reach at all times, day and night, hoping desperately against all evidence and experience that it will finally ring, that he'll hear his daughter's voice after years of painful silence, that she'll grant him the simple mercy of meeting Archie and Lilibet before death makes that reunion eternally impossible. That call has never come and almost certainly never will. Instead, Thomas watches from his exile as Doria enjoys the close relationship he's been permanently denied, as his biological grandchildren grow up knowing absolutely nothing about the grandfather who helped make their mother into the woman she became. The public reaction to Carol Malone's incendiary comments revealed deep and probably unbridgeable divisions in how different segments of society view the Sussexes and their ongoing controversies. Meghan's passionate supporters immediately characterized the claims as transparently racist attacks on Doria, as deliberate attempts to smear a black woman with unsubstantiated and inflammatory allegations about criminality rooted in harmful stereotypes. They pointed out, correctly and importantly, that no arrest records had been produced for public examination, no police mugshots published in tabloids, no concrete documentary evidence offered beyond speculation, innuendo, and carefully worded suggestions. The complete absence of hard proof, they argued persuasively, should end this entire conversation immediately and permanently. But critics responded that the very lack of readily available information was itself inherently suspicious and demanded explanation. Public records from that specific era should theoretically exist and be accessible if Doria was indeed incarcerated in California's prison system. The fact that such records haven't surfaced in years of tabloid investigations could mean the claims are entirely false and baseless, or alternatively, it could mean the records have been successfully suppressed through legal action, sealed by court order, or expunged through California's criminal record relief procedures. The documented gap in Doria's physical presence during Meghan's life isn't speculation or tabloid invention. It's established fact visible in photographs, school records, and the complete absence of any documentation showing mother-daughter interaction during nearly a decade. Something significant kept Doria away during those crucial formative years. If it wasn't prison, if it wasn't a hippie commune, if it wasn't voluntary abandonment, then what was it? Why the continued silence and evasion? The racial dimension of these allegations cannot and should not be ignored or minimized. Doria Ragland is a black woman, and the documented history of the American criminal justice system's grossly disproportionate and unjust impact on black Americans, particularly black women, is both well-established and morally horrific. Accusations of criminal behavior directed at a black woman carry additional weight, implications, and potential for harm that similar claims about a white person simply do not. This reality makes Carol Malone's on-air statement even more explosive, even more fraught with complexity, even more likely to be viewed primarily through the lens of potential racial bias rather than as factual inquiry deserving investigation. Yet simultaneously, Meghan herself has made her biracial identity absolutely central to her public narrative and her advocacy work. She has spoken extensively and emotionally about experiencing racism within the rigid structures of the royal family, about deeply disturbing conversations concerning Archie's potential skin color, about feeling completely unsupported in her desperate struggles with mental health and suicidal ideation. If Doria's absence during Meghan's formative years was indeed the direct result of incarceration in a criminal justice system that disproportionately and unjustly targets black Americans, that could be transformed into a genuinely powerful story of overcoming systemic injustice, of a family courageously reunited despite institutional barriers designed to keep them apart. Why wouldn't Meghan embrace and publicize that narrative if it were actually true? Why the ongoing secrecy, silence, and aggressive legal threats against anyone who asks questions? These fundamental questions remain entirely unanswered as the controversy continues to simmer beneath the surface of royal coverage. GB News, notably and significantly, did not apologize for Carol Malone's explosive comments, did not issue any kind of retraction or clarification, did not attempt to walk back the claims in any way. The network's conspicuous silence on the matter speaks volumes about either their confidence in the underlying factual basis of the statement, or at minimum their calculated willingness to defend the statement against any potential legal challenge from Meghan's notoriously aggressive legal team. Meghan and Harry's lawyers, typically extraordinarily quick to threaten expensive litigation over any perceived invasion of privacy or publication of allegedly false claims, have remained notably and conspicuously quiet about this particular allegation, which itself raises intriguing questions about what they know and what they fear might emerge through the legal discovery process. As the years inexorably pass and Thomas Markle's health continues its heartbreaking deterioration, the fundamental tragedy of this situation deepens and becomes more acute with each missed birthday, each holiday season, each family milestone celebrated without reconciliation. Here is a man who gave absolutely everything for his daughter's success and happiness, who sacrificed his own career advancement and personal ambitions to ensure she had every possible opportunity, who remained present and devoted during a period when her mother was inexplicably and completely absent. His reward for this lifetime of sacrifice has been total abandonment, public humiliation in global media, and the soul-crushing knowledge that he will almost certainly die without ever meeting or holding his grandchildren. Meanwhile, Doria Ragland remains firmly and comfortably ensconced in the Sussex inner circle, her mysterious past apparently irrelevant to her current status as beloved grandmother, trusted confidant, and Meghan's only family member deemed worthy of continued relationship. Whatever actually happened during those missing years, Whatever truth lies carefully buried beneath the carefully constructed public image and aggressive legal protections, Meghan has made her choice crystal clear. Embrace the mother who was absent while rejecting the father who was present. The contrast raises profoundly uncomfortable questions about loyalty, about gratitude, about selective truth-telling, and about the true nature of Meghan's character beneath the polished public relations facade. Even in the complete absence of definitive documentary proof about Doria's past, even without smoking gun evidence that would settle the matter conclusively in a court of law, Carol Malone's on-air claim has permanently altered the conversation surrounding Meghan Markle's family dynamics and her treatment of the people who raised her. The words cannot be unsaid. The questions cannot be unasked. The suspicions cannot be erased from public consciousness. Whether prison, commune, voluntary abandonment, or some other explanation eventually emerges for Doria's decade-long absence from her daughter's daily life, the basic foundational fact remains undeniable and inescapable. Thomas Markle was there, present and devoted, during the years when Doria was not. That simple truth, more powerful than any allegation or speculation, should fundamentally inform how we view and judge Meghan's treatment of her father. A man who stepped up when someone else stepped away, who provided stability during chaos, who loved unconditionally without reservation or agenda, deserves far better than what he has received from the daughter he raised. His mistakes, as real and regrettable as they are, pale in comparison to the fundamental abandonment and cruelty he now experiences. As Thomas ages, as his health crumbles under the weight of cardiac disease and the stress of permanent estrangement, as time runs out for any possible reconciliation or healing, the tragedy of this situation becomes more heartbreaking and inexcusable with each day that passes without contact. The voice of Carol Malone, speaking those 9 devastating words on live television, may have finally given public expression to what millions have long suspected and whispered in private conversations. Whether her explosive claim about Doria's imprisonment ultimately proves accurate or not, she has ensured through that single statement that the question will continue to haunt Meghan's carefully managed public image for years to come. The Duchess of Sussex can control many things through high-priced lawyers and sophisticated publicists and strategically placed media interviews with friendly journalists, but she cannot control the basic human response to a daughter who fully embraces one parent while completely abandoning another without clear moral justification. What do you think really happened during those mysterious missing years? Should Meghan find it in her heart to reconcile with her ailing father before death makes that reunion impossible? Share your honest thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into hidden royal family secrets genuinely revealing, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more uncensored analysis of the stories the mainstream media refuses to fully tell. The truth about the royals is far more complex, far more troubling, and infinitely more fascinating than the sanitized fairy tales we're usually sold, and we're absolutely committed to bringing you that uncomfortable truth, no matter how many powerful people it might displease.